The king has spoken, and he's just slammed the palace doors on his own son, permanently. A shocking new royal standoff is erupting behind palace walls. King Charles has reportedly rejected Meghan Markle's bold request to place her daughter, Lilibet Diana, in the royal line of succession with full recognition, and his response was nothing short of furious. Now, in a move no one saw coming, the monarch has issued a full communication ban, cutting off all ties with Harry and Meghan. What triggered this brutal decision? Why now? And how will this ripple through the monarchy, the children, and the future of the crown? What you're about to hear could change everything we thought we knew about the royal family. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. There are moments in modern monarchy that change everything. Not because of the public spectacle, not because of ceremonial grandeur, but because of the raw, unfiltered emotional weight they carry. What just unfolded between King Charles and his estranged son Prince Harry, triggered by Meghan Markle's alleged demand for their daughter Lilibet Diana's place in the royal succession, is one of those moments. Behind palace walls, beyond the carefully worded press releases and smiling portraits, a rupture has occurred. And this time, the break may be beyond repair. Reports have emerged claiming that King Charles, in a rare display of overt fury, not only rejected a request from Meghan Markle regarding Lilibet Diana's formal recognition in the royal line of succession, but has gone a step further. According to multiple palace insiders and legal correspondents, the king has imposed a full communication ban on both Harry and Meghan. No calls, no letters, no intermediaries. For the first time in modern royal history, a reigning monarch has allegedly severed ties with a senior royal son and his family by formal decree. This is not just another headline in a long saga of royal controversy. This is the King of the United Kingdom drawing a definitive line in the sand. But what led to this decision? Why now? And what exactly did Meghan Markle ask that triggered such a harsh royal response? To understand the weight of this development, we must go back to the origins of the Sussex rift, through the years of media battles, Netflix docuseries, and the memoir that shook the monarchy. We must revisit the moments that laid the foundation for what is now being described by insiders as a royal lockdown of communication. When Meghan Markle first entered the royal family, public sentiment was hopeful. A modern woman, biracial, accomplished, and outspoken, she represented a refreshing change from the traditional mold of royal brides. But what began as a fairy tale quickly devolved into a public relations war. There were reports of tension between Meghan and Kate Middleton. There were whispers of staff resignations, protocol violations, and an ever-widening chasm between the Sussexes and the rest of the family. Then came the interviews. The infamous Oprah Winfrey interview marked a turning point. Meghan claimed she was the victim of racism within the institution. Harry spoke of feeling trapped in royal life. The world watched, stunned, as the couple described a monarchy that seemed cold, disconnected, and, in their words, dangerous. But even with all the drama, there remained a shred of hope for Queen Elizabeth, for Charles, even for William, that the rift could be mended. That hope now appears extinguished. According to sources close to the palace, the current crisis began when Meghan allegedly reignited efforts to have Lilibet Diana, her and Harry's second child, formally recognized in the royal line of succession, with full titles, privileges, and future rights. This was not merely about a ceremonial title. It was reportedly tied to a larger push for inclusion, legitimacy, and a return to royal prominence for her children. But King Charles's answer was swift and uncompromising. No. Insiders described the king as furious, betrayed, and deeply alarmed by what he perceives to be another calculated move by Meghan to leverage the royal family for relevance. And that fury has reportedly led to the decision to ban all further contact. To some, this seems extreme. But palace aides say the decision didn't come out of nowhere. This was the culmination of years of tension, distrust, and calculated maneuvers that have left the king feeling cornered. One senior aide reportedly said, "His Majesty has reached the end of his tolerance. It's not cruelty, it's survival." What does it mean when a monarch bans his own son and daughter-in-law? In the past, royal feuds stayed behind closed doors. The public saw a united front. But the digital age changed everything. With every leaked email, every unauthorized biography, every clip from a tell-all documentary, the palace lost a bit more of its ability to control the narrative. And Charles, who had spent decades preparing for the throne in the shadow of his mother, understands better than anyone that the monarchy cannot withstand endless assaults on its integrity. By banning all contact, Charles is not just retaliating. he is drawing a boundary. He is saying, in effect, that the royal institution will no longer be used as a platform for grievances, branding deals, or reputation management. But where does that leave Lilibet Diana? She is a child, barely old enough to understand her royal heritage, let alone the complex politics swirling around it. And yet, she now finds herself at the heart of a constitutional and emotional war. If the reports are true, and Meghan did request formal succession placement for Lilibet, then that request carries enormous implications. It would entitle Lilibet to a potential future role in royal affairs, security, titles, and a lineage claim that comes with global recognition. Yet, from the palace's perspective, allowing that recognition would open the door to further demands. If Charles yields now, what's next? Demands for security paid by the crown? Appearances at official events? Access to royal residences? For Charles, this may not just be about protocol. It may be about trust. In the wake of the Queen's passing, many assumed there would be a softening, a moment of reconciliation that would bring Harry back into the fold. But instead, Charles appears to have taken a firm approach, intent on stabilizing the monarchy in a time of transition. And Meghan's request, whether fair or not, may have struck him as a threat to that delicate stability. It also raises painful questions. What role did Harry play in this? Was he simply supporting his wife's wishes? Or was he equally invested in pushing for Lilibet's royal recognition? Sources suggest that while Meghan spearheaded the request, Harry stood behind it. Some even claim that Harry, in private calls, tried to frame the appeal as a matter of fairness and legacy. But Charles reportedly interpreted the move as opportunistic, a strategic play rather than a heartfelt plea. What followed was not a debate, but a verdict. Palace insiders say the communication ban was implemented swiftly. One aide even described it as a lockdown of royal lines. Private numbers were changed. Liaison points between the Sussexes and Buckingham Palace were closed. Communications once routed through intermediaries have gone silent. This, then, is the state of the modern Windsor family, fractured, guarded, and for the moment, cut off. And yet, the world is watching. Every tabloid, every royal biographer, every morning talk show. The question now is, what comes next? Will Harry and Meghan respond with another interview? Will they release statements, or will their silence speak louder than words? Will the public side with Charles, viewing his actions as necessary protection for the crown? Or will sympathy tilt once more toward the Sussexes, with headlines focused on a grandfather denying his granddaughter her rightful place? This moment is a test, not just of familial loyalty, but of institutional survival. For now, King Charles stands firm. He has spoken through action. And if his decision holds, it will reshape the royal landscape for years to come. This is not just a family feud. It is the most consequential royal rejection in a generation. And it all centers on one little girl, a legacy in limbo, and a monarch unwilling to compromise. The monarchy has always thrived on order, heritage, and quiet strength. But in recent years, a new dynamic has challenged those foundations, a push not from foreign powers or internal crises, but from within the royal bloodline itself. At the center of this latest storm stands Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, whose ambition, charisma, and undeniable capacity for influence have turned the royal institution on its head more than once. What makes this current development so explosive is that it isn't entirely unexpected. Those close to the palace say the signs were there all along. Meghan's determination to redefine what it means to be royal, on her own terms, and often outside the confines of royal protocol, has been a central theme since her earliest days within the institution. Yet few could have anticipated that she would once again attempt to leverage her children, particularly Lilibet Diana, into the heart of the monarchy's future. Reports indicate that the request submitted to King Charles was framed delicately, perhaps even diplomatically, but its meaning was unmistakable. Meghan wanted Lilibet Diana to be officially recognized in the royal line of succession with all the accompanying privileges and honors. While Lilibet is technically already in the line of succession by birthright, what Meghan sought, according to royal insiders, went far beyond a mere position on a list. She reportedly wanted formal, public acknowledgement. She allegedly wanted the right to refer to Lilibet with full HRH status. She wanted the royal crest authorized. She wanted legacy. And perhaps more controversially, she allegedly wanted it without any return to royal duties. That demand, according to one close source, was the tipping point for the king. It wasn't just what was being requested, It was what wasn't being offered in return. No apology for past grievances. No statement of unity. No renewed commitment to the monarchy. Just expectation. This reignition of royal ambition didn't come out of a vacuum. Since stepping back from royal duties in early 2020, Meghan and Harry have spent the last 4 years carefully rebuilding their public narrative. From their bombshell Oprah interview to the polished lens of their Netflix docuseries and Harry's tell-all memoir, the couple has worked tirelessly to ensure that their version of the royal fallout becomes the accepted truth. At the core of Meghan's public image has been the portrayal of a strong mother, fiercely protective of her children's rights and identity. For her, securing Lilibet's royal status may not have simply been about titles. It may have been a symbol of redemption, a way to reclaim the royal identity she believes was stolen from her. In some circles, this latest request is being interpreted as Meghan's final attempt to rewrite her chapter in royal history, not as the outsider who left, but as the mother of a royal child whose rightful place was unjustly denied. But palace insiders view it differently. They see it as a move rooted in strategy rather than sentiment. A senior courtier, speaking anonymously, described the request as calculated, suggesting that Meghan had timed the approach deliberately after Queen Elizabeth's death. Banking on King Charles's softer public image and the world's emotional focus on legacy and continuity. She waited, the aide reportedly said. She knew the Queen had passed, the transition was complete, and the new monarch was still establishing himself. It was a test to see if the new king would hold the line, or if he would bend for the sake of family peace. In Meghan's defense, some royal watchers argue that her concerns are legitimate. Why? They ask, should Lilibet and Archie be excluded from titles and recognition when Prince William's children have enjoyed those honors since birth? Isn't there a double standard? Isn't the monarchy, once again, sending a signal that Harry and Meghan's branch of the family is less valid? But Buckingham Palace maintains that the difference lies not in bloodline, but in service. William and Kate, for all their flaws, remain active working royals. Their children are being raised within the system. By contrast, Harry and Meghan not only walked away from their roles, they criticized the institution with almost surgical precision. They accused unnamed family members of racism. They described the royal household as a toxic environment. They painted the monarchy as a suffocating relic. Against that backdrop, Charles's refusal is less a personal rebuke than a line drawn in defense of the crown. And yet, Meghan's supporters say this moment was never about power, it was about dignity. One of Meghan's close friends allegedly told a U.S. magazine off the record that Meghan was just trying to do what's right for her daughter. She knows the life they've chosen is different, but that doesn't mean Lilibet should be denied her heritage. That framing of a mother fighting for her child's identity resonates with millions of people, particularly in America, where personal agency and equality often take precedence over traditional hierarchy. Meghan's story, to many of her followers, is not about royal politics. It's about a woman battling a cold institution for the right to define her family's future. But that very narrative may be why Charles saw the request as unacceptable. There's a deep tension between legacy and reinvention within the modern royal family. The monarchy is trying to walk a tightrope, remaining relevant while maintaining structure. Meghan's push to have Lilibet embraced by the institution without returning to it herself threatens that balance. It risks setting a precedent that one can have the benefits of royalty without the responsibility. More importantly, palace advisors fear that accepting such a request would reopen the door for further claims. What's to stop Meghan from next requesting royal security, official appearances, or inclusion in royal events on her terms? And beneath it all, there is the issue of trust. Many within the palace never fully recovered from the Netflix revelations or the memoir's accusations. While Meghan and Harry claim to have spoken their truth, the palace sees it differently. They view the couple as having violated sacred family boundaries. To now ask for titles and legitimacy for their children feels, to some royal insiders, like an insult wrapped in entitlement. Royal historian Deborah Cartwright offered this perspective. The British monarchy has survived by being rigid where it must and flexible where it can. This situation called for rigidity. Once the monarchy becomes transactional, it ceases to be symbolic. But Meghan likely sees things in reverse. From her perspective, the monarchy has already been transactional, awarding status to those who conform and punishing those who don't. Her actions over the past 4 years suggest she believes that modern relevance can, and should, be earned through storytelling, not submission. So what happens when those two worldviews collide? What happens is what we're seeing now, a royal standoff unlike any in recent memory. Sources say that before Charles issued the communication ban, there were at least 2 private appeals from Harry, first by phone and then through an aide. Harry reportedly tried to appeal to his father's legacy, suggesting that accepting Lilibet as a rightful heir would be a gesture of healing. But Charles's mood, according to those present, was unmoved. He didn't see a family trying to reconnect, one insider said. He saw a family trying to control the narrative again. This section of the story is crucial because it's not just about whether Lilibet gets a title or not. It's about competing visions of what the royal family should be in the 21st century. Should it evolve to accommodate modern families who wish to engage with it only partially? Or must it remain an all-or-nothing institution, where membership comes with service and sacrifice? The conversation doesn't end with Charles's refusal. It sparks deeper questions that may define the next decade of royal relevance. Is Meghan trying to secure a legacy for her children or reclaim a lost crown for herself? Is Charles protecting the monarchy or denying his own granddaughter her future? In the public arena, perceptions are split. Social media is ablaze with opinions, hashtags both supporting and condemning the king's stance. Political figures have avoided the fray, but cultural commentators have weighed in, questioning the monarchy's tone-deafness and its apparent unwillingness to evolve. Still, amid all the noise, one thing is clear. Meghan's royal ambition, far from being extinguished, has reignited. Whether it leads to reconciliation or deeper exile remains to be seen. What we do know is that this request, far more than just a formality, has become the trigger for a wider crisis. The royal household has made its choice. Meghan has made her move, and the world is once again watching a royal confrontation unfold, not in the quiet chambers of Buckingham Palace, but across headlines, screens, and living rooms worldwide. At the heart of the current royal storm lies a child who has yet to set foot in the United Kingdom in any meaningful public way. Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor. Barely a toddler, she's already the subject of international debate, legal speculation, and deeply emotional rhetoric. Her name echoes through headlines, yet the conversation surrounding her is far more complex than a simple question of succession. This section dives into the constitutional, legal, and symbolic frameworks of monarchy to explore whether Meghan Markle's alleged request for Lilibet's royal recognition is grounded in historical precedent, or if it stretches beyond what royal tradition allows. By birthright alone, Lilibet Diana is a descendant of Queen Elizabeth II. As the daughter of Prince Harry, she falls within the direct royal bloodline. In fact, under British law and the rules of succession, she is currently 8th in line to the throne. No special decree or permission is required for her to occupy that place numerically. It's automatic. She follows her brother Archie, who is 7th, and precedes Prince Andrew, who is 9th. So where's the controversy? The issue lies not in her place on a list, but in what that position entitles her to and how it is publicly acknowledged or denied. For Meghan and Harry, this isn't simply about legal placement. It's about titles, formal recognition, and full acceptance into the fabric of the monarchy. And therein lies the tension. To understand how this works, we must look at the 1917 letters patent issued by King George V. That royal decree established that only the children of the monarch, the grandchildren of the monarch through the male line, and the eldest son of the Prince of Wales would hold the title of prince or princess and be addressed as his or her royal highness. Under those rules, Harry and Meghan's children wouldn't automatically be entitled to royal titles at birth since they were great-grandchildren of the monarch at the time, Queen Elizabeth II. However, when Charles became king, the situation changed. By the letter of the law, Archie and Lilibet, now grandchildren of the sovereign through the male line, technically became eligible for royal titles. And yet, no official title change was announced. No public statement from the palace. Only silence. This ambiguity is what created the storm. In March 2023, Meghan and Harry began referring to their daughter as Princess Lilibet Diana in statements released to the press, most notably during her christening announcement, which took place in California and was reportedly attended by a small group of celebrity friends. The palace responded not with congratulations, but with a notable lack of comment. It was the first public move in a quiet title tug-of-war. For some, this act of self-titling appeared bold, even rebellious. Royal titles are not just ceremonial. They carry legal and diplomatic implications. They represent connection to the crown and, in many ways, accountability to the institution. Palace insiders saw it as a provocation. One royal aide, speaking anonymously to a London newspaper, stated, "You can't live in California, monetize your royal connection, and then demand that your children be granted status as if you've never left the fold. It doesn't work that way." But others see hypocrisy. Why should William and Kate's children receive titles instantly, while Harry and Meghan's children are subjected to political games? The answer, as with so much in royal life, is layered. There is a practical side to the issue. The use of royal titles traditionally comes with expectations of public service. Those granted such honors are typically expected to attend events, represent the crown, and maintain certain standards of conduct. By stepping back from their roles and publicly criticizing the monarchy, Harry and Meghan arguably forfeited their children's automatic entitlement to such privileges. But there's also a symbolic side. For King Charles, this moment is about precedent. He is the first monarch to begin his reign amid an active media war within his own family. Every decision he makes is scrutinized not just through the lens of tradition, but through the expectations of modern politics, press narratives, and public image. Granting royal titles to children who will likely never reside in the United Kingdom, never perform royal duties, and whose parents continue to challenge the crown's integrity in global media, would signal a dangerous shift. It could set the tone for future royal generations, where titles become bargaining chips instead of honors rooted in service and loyalty. To make matters even more complicated, the debate over Lilibet's royal status has taken on racial and national dimensions. Critics of the monarchy point out that Meghan, as a biracial woman, faced intense scrutiny and that this same scrutiny now follows her children. They argue that race and nationality, Lilibet and Archie were born in the United States, shouldn't be barriers to recognition. But defenders of the monarchy argue that the decision isn't about race, but role. One constitutional expert explained, "The monarchy isn't a family business you can participate in from a distance. It requires proximity. Physical, emotional, and symbolic. The titles are reserved not as tokens of birth but as tools of continuity. They link the crown to the people. That link is meaningless if it's symbolic only in name." Still, Meghan's supporters remain unconvinced. They argue that Meghan and Harry tried to maintain ties. They cite examples where the couple expressed willingness to be part-time royals, only to be told that the monarchy has no provision for part-time roles. One former royal advisor summed it up bluntly, "The royal family doesn't do half in, half out." That's the real problem. Nowhere is this more visible than in the ongoing tug-of-war over Lilibet's identity. In a sense, she has become a symbolic figure for two conflicting visions of the modern monarchy. One vision embraces inclusivity, reform, and adaptability. The other clings to structure, hierarchy, and the unspoken codes of royal conduct. Neither side is fully right or fully wrong. And yet, Lilibet stands at the intersection of these visions, too young to speak for herself, yet already caught in a narrative shaped by decades of royal tension. There are also legal elements that cannot be ignored. Technically, King Charles could issue new letters patent to clarify or redefine the royal titles issue altogether. He could strip titles. He could bestow them. He could create a new standard. But doing so would attract global attention, legal challenges, and potentially parliamentary oversight. So, the palace remains in silence. And in that silence, speculation flourishes. From TV commentators to Twitter threads, from morning talk shows to international news outlets, everyone has an opinion. Should Lilibet be called a princess? Should the crown embrace the Sussex children as full members of the royal fold? Or has too much damage already been done? Meanwhile, in Montecito, California, a little girl plays in a garden, unaware that her name has become a lightning rod for royal debate. She doesn't yet understand the weight of her name, the meaning of the word succession, or the reason her face remains largely hidden from the public eye. But one day she will. One day, she will grow old enough to ask why she was excluded, or why her name was used as a symbol in a fight she didn't choose. And what will her parents say then? What will her grandfather's actions look like in hindsight? This is what makes the issue of Lilibet Diana's royal place so explosive. It's not about policy, it's about perception. It's not about monarchy, it's about memory. In a world where legacy is shaped as much by media as by law, Lilibet's place in the royal story will be defined not only by who claims her, but by who denies her. And right now, that denial appears to be coming from the highest seat in the land, the king himself. The phrase "the straw that broke the camel's back" has rarely felt more fitting than in the account of a private phone call between Prince Harry and his father, King Charles III. For all the drama, discontent, and distance that has defined their relationship over the past several years, there had still been a thread of connection, a fragile, sometimes strained, but unbroken line of communication. Until now. The latest crisis reportedly reached its peak when Harry, prompted by Meghan Markle's renewed push for their daughter Lilibet's royal recognition, decided to call his father directly. It wasn't through an aide. It wasn't a scheduled conversation through diplomatic channels. It was, according to palace insiders, a personal appeal. And what unfolded in that phone call has been described by those close to both men as a moment of complete collapse. According to several leaked sources and unnamed royal correspondents, the call took place late in the evening London time, initiated by Harry from the couple's Montecito residence. The tone from the beginning was described as heavy and defensive. Harry reportedly opened the conversation not with pleasantries, but with a direct appeal for fairness. He asked that Lilibet Diana be recognized as a princess, in line with the status she would hold under normal succession rules, and that her position be formally acknowledged by the palace. King Charles's response, however, was anything but conciliatory. The conversation allegedly turned quickly. Sources indicate that Charles questioned Harry's timing, motives, and sincerity. The king, still reeling from years of public exposure and personal humiliation stemming from Harry and Meghan's media campaigns, is said to have taken the request not as a family matter, but as a provocation. You abandoned the system. You tore it down. You don't get to rewrite the rules just because it suits you now. That's what Charles is reported to have said, an emotionally charged statement that encapsulates the deep anger and disappointment that has been building up for years. Harry was reportedly stunned. He had expected resistance, perhaps even skepticism, but what he encountered instead was what insiders have described as an emotional wall. Charles, often thought of as a thoughtful and measured man, was said to be uncharacteristically blunt. The weight of monarchy, family history, and public betrayal had, in that moment, boiled over into a rare display of raw emotion. Palace aides who were briefed on the aftermath say the king was visibly upset after the call. It wasn't just about Lilibet, said one staffer. It was about everything. Diana's legacy, the pain of watching his family fracture, and the sense that Harry had crossed a line from which there could be no return. What exactly caused the breakdown during the call? According to various reports, Harry attempted to position the request as a gesture of reconciliation. He allegedly said that acknowledging Lilibet's title would go a long way in repairing trust, suggesting that it would give his children a sense of belonging and unity with their British heritage. But the moment he referenced the idea that the Queen would have wanted this, Charles reportedly became furious. That comment, more than any other, is said to have triggered the king's emotional response. He allegedly replied, "Do not use my mother's name to justify your ambitions. You weren't there when it mattered. Don't rewrite her wishes now." It was a statement heavy with history and pain. Queen Elizabeth II, revered by Charles and the nation alike, had reportedly tried to keep family tensions manageable during her final years. While she publicly embraced Harry and Meghan's exit from working royal life, insiders say she also made it clear, privately, that titles were tied to duty. Her philosophy had always been service first, and Charles appears committed to preserving that ethos in his reign. Sources say the call quickly spiraled after that. Harry allegedly accused his father of favoritism and failing to treat his children equally. Charles pushed back, citing not favoritism, but accountability. "You made your choice," he reportedly told Harry. "Now you must live with it." There are conflicting accounts about how the call ended. Some say Charles hung up first. Others claim Harry, overwhelmed and emotional, ended the call in frustration. What all insiders agree on is that the fallout was immediate and profound. Within 24 hours of that call, a decision was made within Buckingham Palace to cease all direct communication with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Internal memos were reportedly circulated to key staff. Private phone lines used for occasional updates or contact were shut off. Intermediaries, including those used during times of royal emergencies, were instructed to decline involvement. For the first time, King Charles drew a formal boundary around his reign, one that excluded his youngest son and his family. The ban was not ceremonial. It was structural. One royal advisor described it this way: "It's like closing a gate." You don't do it unless you believe what's on the other side is a threat to the order within. This decision sent shockwaves through not only the palace but also the wider royal establishment. While it's common for royals to have disagreements, sometimes even major fallouts, an outright severing of communication is unprecedented in modern times. In past royal feuds, between Charles and Diana, between the Queen and her sister Margaret, even between Queen Elizabeth and her uncle Edward VIII after the abdication, there remains some avenue of diplomacy, some backchannel of civility. This situation appears to have bypassed that entirely. Was it justified? For many royal loyalists, Charles's decision was long overdue. They view Harry and Meghan's media crusade as relentless and damaging. The Oprah interview, with its unverified accusations, the Netflix series, with its staged grievances, the memoir, with its revelations of private family moments, all served, in their eyes, as acts of betrayal. To then ask for inclusion, after so much exposure and criticism, seemed like manipulation. But for others, especially supporters of Meghan and Harry, Charles's response looks harsh, almost vindictive. They argue that Harry, despite everything, was making a personal appeal for his daughter. That family, regardless of politics, should find ways to reconcile. That turning away from one's own blood, especially grandchildren, is unbecoming of a monarch. There is, undeniably, a human tragedy unfolding here. Behind the layers of protocol, symbolism, and institutional necessity is a father and a son who no longer speak. A grandfather who may never meet his granddaughter in person again. A royal family that once prided itself on unity, now splintered into silence. And yet, the silence speaks volumes. According to sources, Charles believes that this decision, painful as it may be, is necessary to protect the monarchy from further erosion. His reign is young, but the pressures are immense. From political debates over the monarchy's relevance to questions about funding, succession, and colonial legacy, Charles has inherited a crown that is heavier than ever. Every move he makes will define not just his legacy, but the monarchy's survival in the modern era. In that context, giving ground to Harry and Meghan now, especially without full restoration of trust, would send the wrong signal. But what does it mean for Harry? Those close to him say he is devastated. While he has often appeared confident and defiant in public, insiders describe a man increasingly isolated from his roots. California offers freedom, yes, but also distance. And for Harry, whose identity was forged in the crucible of royal duty and tragedy, that distance can feel like exile. One friend of the Sussexes reportedly told a U.S. media outlet, "Harry is hurting." That call was his last shot at building a bridge. And it didn't just collapse, it was torched. The question now becomes whether that bridge can ever be rebuilt. Some palace watchers believe that time, and possibly future tragedy, may lead to a thaw. That when emotions cool and new generations mature, old wounds can heal. Others are not so optimistic. They point to Charles's history of slow forgiveness, his commitment to legacy over sentiment, and his deep loyalty to the institution. For now, the gates remain closed. And a phone call that began as a plea for inclusion ended in silence so profound, it has reshaped the royal landscape. While King Charles's firm response and communication ban made headlines across the globe, the attention quickly shifted to Montecito, California, where many wondered how Meghan Markle would respond. Known for her media-savvy, calculated public appearances, and ability to frame personal struggles into widely relatable narratives, Meghan's next steps were not likely to be reactive, but deliberate. And as history has shown, every time she has been pushed out of the traditional royal sphere, she has returned with a strategy to regain the upper hand, through storytelling, influence, and public sympathy. In the immediate aftermath of King Charles's decision to cut communication and reject the formal recognition of Lilibet Diana's royal status, Meghan reportedly went into what one close contact described as crisis media planning mode. There were no public statements issued from her or Harry. No tell-all interviews, no Instagram posts, no Netflix trailers. But inside the Sussex household, according to insiders, a different kind of movement was taking shape. Quiet meetings with PR experts, off-the-record conversations with select media allies, and a detailed recalibration of public messaging. The message Meghan intended to send was clear, even if it hadn't been spoken yet. This was not about royalty. It was about motherhood. According to two sources who work with Meghan's publicity team, her strategy was built on one simple but powerful principle: empathy. She knew that the public, especially in the United States, would rally behind a mother who appeared to be fighting for her daughter's identity and dignity. Meghan has long understood how to position herself within broader cultural conversations about race, womanhood, mental health, and generational trauma. This moment, though steeped in royal protocols and lineage debates, was being reframed by her team as a deeply personal matter. The first steps in this strategy came subtly. Key sympathetic media outlets began running headlines with emotional framing. Meghan silenced again, this time over her daughter. A grandfather's cold decision. Why won't the royal family acknowledge Lilibet Diana? No one from the Sussex camp needed to speak directly. The headlines did it for them. It is important to understand that Meghan's power has always been rooted in her control of narrative. When she and Harry stepped back from their royal roles, they didn't fade into irrelevance. They built a global media empire. From the Oprah interview to the Netflix docuseries, from Harry's memoir spare to podcast appearances, they crafted a consistent narrative. The monarchy had failed them, the system was outdated and unwelcoming, and their family had been victims of both institutional cruelty and public misunderstanding. Now, with Lilibet's title dispute becoming global news, Meghan had the opportunity to present herself not just as a misunderstood duchess, but as a protective mother standing up to a cold monarchy. One friend of Meghan's, who spoke to a lifestyle magazine under anonymity, shared, she was heartbroken, but she wasn't surprised. What shocked her wasn't the rejection, it was how final it was. No dialogue, no room for understanding, just silence. In private conversations, Meghan reportedly described Charles's decision as punitive, outdated, and emotionally damaging for the children. Her team began drafting potential op-eds and speeches focusing on identity, legacy, and what it means to be excluded from your heritage due to politics. There was also a conversation around future platforms. Insiders suggest that Meghan was already exploring opportunities to speak on panels and attend conferences related to maternal rights, biracial identity, and the struggle for children of color to have access to their cultural heritage. These topics, while seemingly unrelated to royalty, would allow Meghan to subtly tie Lilibet's experience into broader global issues without directly naming the royal family. It would keep the message relevant without triggering immediate backlash from Buckingham Palace. Meghan's strategy was about creating the environment, not delivering the message directly, letting the public draw their own conclusions, but seeding those conclusions carefully. Behind the scenes, discussions also reportedly began about potential book deals. While Harry had already released his explosive memoir, Meghan had kept her story largely intact. Several publishers were allegedly in talks for a future memoir or book centered on her journey, from Hollywood actress to duchess, to mother raising royal children in exile. While such a book might still be years away, its planning now held added urgency. Meghan's team understood that the more time passed without official titles for her children, the more emotionally resonant the book could become. The rejection from Charles could serve as a powerful emotional arc in her eventual narrative, the day the monarchy turned its back, not on her, but on her innocent daughter. For Harry, the situation was more complicated. Though publicly silent, he was reportedly shaken by the complete communication freeze. Meghan's strategy emphasized control, but Harry, according to friends, felt the rejection deeply and personally. His relationship with his father, already fractured, had now been reduced to silence. The one thing he had hoped to protect, his family's link to his British heritage, had now been cut off. It's been reported that Meghan gently encouraged Harry to channel his pain into a new mission, advocacy. Friends close to the couple claim that Meghan suggested they focus on children's rights, on raising awareness for biracial identity, and on confronting legacy institutions that continue to exclude based on tradition. In doing so, they could take the emotional sting of the rejection and redirect it into public empowerment. But even as this media and messaging machine quietly activated, Meghan reportedly understood the danger of overplaying her hand. One PR insider, who has previously consulted with the Sussex team, commented, "She knows that if she's too aggressive, the British public will turn on her again. It's a tightrope. She has to be soft, subtle, frame herself as the mother, not the duchess. Let Charles look like the one who closed the door." This approach appeared to be working. Within days, social media was ablaze with support. Hashtags like #JusticeForLilibet and #ColdCharles trended in the US and parts of Canada. Several celebrities, though not directly referencing the title issue, posted general messages about children deserving to know their roots or the damage of exclusion from identity. In Meghan's circle, those posts weren't random. They were part of a quietly coordinated wave of sentiment, designed to keep the story alive without appearing manufactured. In the days that followed, subtle signals continued. Meghan was seen in public for the first time in weeks, visiting a local community center with Archie and Lilibet. The photos, while not officially released, were quickly picked up by media outlets. The message was clear: Meghan, the devoted mother, carrying on with grace. No press conference, no confrontation, just quiet strength. But beneath that calm exterior, strategy continued to unfold. Behind closed doors, advisors began re-examining Meghan's brand partnerships, public appearances, and even potential awards she could receive from advocacy organizations sympathetic to her cause. Everything was being evaluated through a new lens: how to leverage the current sympathy without turning it into scandal. It's important to remember that Meghan's media instincts were honed long before she entered royal life. As an actress, activist, and public speaker, she understands how stories work and how emotions drive engagement. In the world of modern media, especially American media, facts alone are not enough. It is the feeling, the injustice, the heartbreak, the resilience that builds a narrative people want to rally behind. And so, with Charles's decision now firmly in the public domain, Meghan's next move wasn't simply to fight it, but to out-narrate it, to turn exclusion into empowerment, to turn silence into story, to make the monarchy look outdated while presenting herself as forward-thinking, to be, in the eyes of many, not the Duchess denied, but the mother wronged. For centuries, the British royal family has projected an image of stoic endurance. Crises have come and gone, feuds have simmered behind closed doors, and scandals have been met with a royal shrug and a famously stiff upper lip. But in this new age of global scrutiny and media warfare, the old playbook appears to be shifting, and King Charles III is at the helm of this transformation. Following the now infamous phone call between Prince Harry and his father, and Meghan Markle's subsequent behind-the-scenes media recalibrations, Buckingham Palace made what insiders say is one of the most definitive moves in recent royal history: a total and formal shutdown of all communications with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This was not a symbolic gesture. It was not a press-friendly pause in relations, nor a simple refusal to engage on one matter. It was a full-scale operational closure, an internal directive issued to palace staff that all communication channels between the royal household and Harry and Meghan were to be sealed indefinitely. No calls, no emails, no handwritten notes, no representatives or liaisons. In royal terms, it was a complete ban. According to palace sources, the king made this decision not in haste, but with resolute calculation. This was not the product of emotional reaction, but of long-standing frustration, deep distrust, and a desire to protect the monarchy from further corrosion. The final trigger, insiders claim, was not just the request regarding Lilibet's title. It was what followed. The perceived expectation that the royal family would cave to pressure under the veil of reconciliation, the calculated rollout of public sympathy through press leaks, and Harry's use of personal appeal wrapped in public implication. It was the realization that, in the eyes of the palace, every personal conversation was a potential headline. Every phone call could become an anecdote in a memoir. Every effort at dialogue risked being reinterpreted on camera or in interviews. That's when King Charles, for the first time as sovereign, made a personal command that shocked even his closest advisors: no more. Senior aides convened within hours. Communication staff were instructed to reroute all messages from Montecito or their intermediaries directly to a designated archive. No replies, no forwarding. Legal advisors reviewed the move to ensure no obligations were breached in ongoing royal affairs. Even security liaisons who maintained minimal coordination due to past protocol were told to cease correspondence. The ban was sweeping, and it was deliberate. Behind this drastic move lies a royal doctrine many thought had become outdated: the need for total separation to preserve sovereign integrity. A palace courtier explained, "The king views this not as personal retaliation, but institutional necessity. The crown cannot be in a relationship where every dialogue becomes drama. There must be trust, or there is nothing." This wasn't just Charles acting as a father. This was Charles as king, protecting the monarchy's reputation and functionality in the face of relentless personal attack. To some, this is evidence of strength. To others, a heartbreaking escalation in a family feud that has gone from emotional to political. Royal watchers were stunned by the severity. Some had expected Charles to push back, maybe even issue a public statement of disappointment. But few anticipated a total communication blackout. Not in an era where diplomacy is the rule, and not when family remains at the center of the royal brand. Yet the ban was enforced without fanfare. No press release. No televised statement. Just silence, a silence that echoed louder than words. The media began piecing together the fallout based on abrupt changes in protocol. Invitations once extended were quietly withdrawn. Palace sources stopped answering queries related to the Sussexes. Security and travel officials who had previously coordinated limited engagements with Harry, especially around the king's coronation, found their directives suddenly reversed. By the end of that week, the message was clear. The monarchy had closed its doors. But this silence did not go unnoticed. Across the Atlantic, speculation mounted. Would Meghan respond publicly? Would Harry attempt to break the embargo with another media interview? Would allies like Oprah, Tyler Perry, or close friends of the Sussexes step into the void to speak on their behalf? So far, the response has been restrained. Perhaps deliberately so. The Sussexes, it appears, are playing the long game. But the real question lies not in their reaction, but in the palace's motivation. Why now? Why such finality? The answer may lie in the king's broader strategy for his reign. Charles has spent a lifetime preparing for the throne, watching as his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, weathered political scandals, family embarrassments, and shifting cultural tides with quiet endurance. But Charles is not Elizabeth. He does not share her detachment. He has always been more expressive, more emotionally attuned, and more invested in shaping legacy in real time. His decision to cut communication with Harry and Meghan appears rooted in this desire to control the narrative and preserve institutional clarity. Under Elizabeth, the royal family may have simply waited for the scandal to pass. Under Charles, there is a clear line. Those who challenge the monarchy from the outside will not be welcomed inside. This shift has implications far beyond family dynamics. The communication ban marks a formal boundary between active and former royals. It signifies that those who leave the system cannot maintain influence over it. It reinforces the idea that royalty is not simply inherited, but earned through service, loyalty, and discretion. By cutting off Harry and Meghan, Charles is signaling to the nation and the Commonwealth that the monarchy must move forward unburdened by internal conflict, that the era of half-in, half-out roles is over, that the monarchy, in this new chapter, is about stability, not sentiment. Yet this decision does not come without cost. Within the family, it solidifies the fracture. It ends any illusion that reconciliation is on the horizon. For William, it places even greater pressure to be the bridge, an expectation he may resist given his own frustrations with Harry. For the public, it casts a shadow over royal unity and leaves a generation of viewers wondering whether this historic institution can truly balance tradition with humanity. For Harry and Meghan's children, it is a blow that may shape their identity forever. They now grow up not just physically separated from the royal family, but symbolically cut off. Their titles are uncertain. Their place in history, complicated. Their understanding of their British heritage, filtered entirely through their parents' eyes. And for the king, the decision places him in uncharted territory. No monarch in living memory has so formally distanced himself from a direct heir. Not even Edward VIII, after his abdication and exile, was entirely cut off from royal communication. Charles's move, therefore, is not just a personal line, it is a constitutional statement. A declaration that the crown must be protected, even from within. How long this ban will last remains unknown. Some believe it will remain until an unequivocal apology is issued. Others think it may endure indefinitely unless the Sussexes choose full disengagement from public attacks. And a few believe that time, as it often does, may soften even the hardest of lines. But for now, the message is unmistakable. There will be no calls, no correspondence, no middle ground. The gates of Buckingham Palace are closed. As King Charles moved to sever communication with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, palace insiders turned their attention to another key figure in the royal power structure, Prince William. The heir to the throne, the future King of England, and perhaps most critically, the person caught in the emotional crossfire between a father's authority and a brother's rebellion. For years, the dynamic between William and Harry was painted in glowing colors, brothers bound by tragedy, camaraderie, and a shared royal destiny. But as the rift deepened and Harry's actions escalated, William found himself navigating one of the most personal and painful decisions of his life, whether to remain open to reconciliation or fully align himself with the crown. With King Charles's recent hardline stance and formal communication ban, the question has become unavoidable. Where does William stand? According to close palace aides and royal watchers, the answer is now clear. William has chosen the institution. Those close to the Prince of Wales say that while the decision didn't come easily, his patience has worn thin. Though often more emotionally reserved than his younger brother, William has not been immune to the pain of betrayal. Sources say that he has been privately supportive of his father's decision to cut off all contact with the Sussexes, not because he takes joy in it, but because he sees no other path forward. He has made peace with the fact that his brother is gone, said one royal staffer. Not just physically, but emotionally. They're on entirely different sides now. This evolution did not happen overnight. In the early stages of the rift, William reportedly held out hope that the feud could be resolved. After all, they had faced the loss of their mother together. They had endured the glare of public life, scandal, and scrutiny side by side. But after Harry and Meghan's explosive Oprah interview, which included allegations of racism and indifference to mental health, William's tone changed. When confronted by journalists outside a royal event and asked directly whether the royal family was racist, William responded with the now famous line, "We are very much not a racist family." It was brief, but firm, a subtle break from the code of silence the royals typically uphold. It was also a sign that William was beginning to distance himself from Harry's version of events. Following that interview, and the release of Spare, William's sense of betrayal reportedly grew. Harry's memoir included deeply personal revelations about their arguments, private conversations, and even alleged physical altercations. For William, these weren't just tabloid headlines. They were breaches of sacred family trust. Sources within Kensington Palace say that William was particularly disturbed by how his wife, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was portrayed in Harry's retelling of events. While Meghan and Kate had their differences, William believed those tensions were private, not to be dissected on streaming platforms and in best-selling books. In the days leading up to Charles's decision to cut ties with Harry and Meghan, William was said to be in regular contact with his father. Though Charles made the final call, William reportedly expressed strong support. He viewed the decision not as punitive, but as necessary for institutional clarity and family protection. He's seen the damage firsthand, a former royal press officer revealed. The toll it's taken on his father. The emotional stress on his own children. For William, this wasn't just about drama, it was about safeguarding the monarchy for the future. Privately, William is said to have adopted a much colder stance toward Harry than in previous years. There are no attempts to reach out. No text messages. No back-channel conversations through mutual friends. He has accepted the fracture. He has embraced his role as the next king-in-waiting, and with that, the duty to protect the crown, even if it means letting go of his only brother. But this loyalty to the institution hasn't been easy. People who have known William since childhood say he still carries deep emotional scars from losing his mother, Princess Diana. In many ways, Harry was the only person who truly understood that loss. Their bond was forged in mourning. And while they coped differently, William internalizing, Harry externalizing, their connection was once unshakable. That's what makes the current rift so devastating. For William, it's not just the loss of a brother. It's the loss of the only person who understood his childhood trauma. Those close to William say he has managed that grief by focusing on his own family. Catherine has been a source of strength and clarity. Together, they've built a stable public image, 3 children, a growing list of royal duties, and a home life centered on consistency and discretion. Unlike Harry, William has chosen to work within the system rather than against it. That distinction, to many royal advisors, is what solidifies William's position in the current conflict. He has done what was expected of him, shouldered the burden, absorbed the pressure, and maintained the image of royal unity even when the institution wobbled. Now, as his father sets the tone for a new era of monarchy, one that does not tolerate internal sabotage, William is seen as the crown's greatest hope for continuity. He is not just Charles's son. He is his strategic partner. In public, William has remained silent about the communication ban. No statements. No interviews. But behind palace walls, aides say he has been focused, calm, and unshaken. He understands that the long-term survival of the monarchy depends on firm decisions. He supports his father because he believes that if the institution bends too far to accommodate personal grievances, it will eventually collapse. Still, not everyone agrees with his approach. Some royal observers argue that William, as a future king and older brother, could have been a bridge, that he might have used his influence to mediate rather than escalate. That his silence, while strategic, lacks empathy. Others, however, see his resolve as necessary. The royal family, they argue, has bent too far for too long. It has been reactive, rather than proactive. William, in aligning with his father, is simply reinforcing the need for boundaries and redefining what it means to be royal in an era where personal truth often trumps public duty. One senior royal aide put it this way: there's a misconception that being a royal is about privilege. It's not. It's about restraint. And William understands that better than anyone. The final question now is whether William's alignment with the king is permanent, or if there remains even the faintest possibility of future reconciliation. Those who have spoken to William privately suggest that the door isn't locked, but it's certainly closed. He's not seeking a reunion. He's not hoping for a breakthrough. If Harry returns someday, it will have to be on royal terms, not personal ones. No interviews, no memoirs, no public blame. In other words, William is willing to forgive, but only if the damage stops. Until then, he stands with his father, not just as a son, but as the next sovereign.